There are so many things I wish somebody had told me when I was growing up, such as one day, all you'll be is a memory. Now, I don't mean it in the existential, all my days, you're gonna die, live every day as if it's your last type of way. I mean it in the type of way where somebody will always have a version of you that doesn't exist anymore, because that's the only memory they can hold on to since they don't take up space in your life anymore. For example, think of somebody you don't talk to. Not even somebody you had to have fallen out with, but somebody that you just became distant with. Maybe it was a childhood friend, maybe it's a coworker, maybe it's a family friend who, you saw them when you were young and now all of a sudden you don't speak anymore. Do you remember the last time you had a conversation with them? Do you remember the last time you truly spoke to them? I know I wouldn't. I wouldn't even know what the conversation was about, because for me, it would just be a normal day, like any other. I'll be speaking, we'll be talking, everything will be fine, and then you go home and all of a sudden 1 day of no contact turns into 2 days of no contact turns into 3, and then those days add up into weeks, and those weeks turn into months, and those months turn into years, and all of a sudden the person that you were once so close with is now just a memory. And the biggest issue I have with that is the fact that no one tells you when you're making memories. If I was to ask you to think of some of your best memories, some of the most significant moments in your life, sure, you'll have all of the grandiose moments. Like for me, 2014, I went to Berlin with my family to visit other family. I remember that trip fondly. But the memories that often come to the forefront, past all of the grandiose stuff, are the little mundane days, the little tiny moments that I didn't realize would mean so much to me. The times where you'll be sitting on FaceTime until ridiculous hours of the night. You'll be playing the game with your friends. You'll be dancing, listening to music, trying out a new food. The things that make up the hours of the everyday that we always take for granted. Because that's the reason I always say nostalgia will be the death of us. Because nostalgia isn't a big overarching menace. It's not a big overarching feeling that you feel and it's like a sense of impending doom. Not at all. Nostalgia is a silent killer. It comes in the moments where you smell something and it reminds you of your childhood. You hear a song again and you remember how that one friend used to dance to that song. You see a movie and then you remember, oh, that was that one friend's character. They love that character. Oh, I remember how they used to always talk about they wanted to act. All of these little insignificant details add up to eventually create moments that weigh with an ache in our chest whenever we sit with them for too long. For me, the Sunday dinners that my mom used to make, as much as I used to take them for granted because it just became routine, looking back on it, I can see all of the emotional weight that went into it. The amount of time that my mum would spend toiling away to make sure that the meal was nutritious, make sure everything was clean, it was taken care of, make sure we were fed and we were satisfied, and then cleaning up after everyone. How we would all sit down at the table and watch TV. We would have some random Cartoon Network show, or maybe we'd be watching a Disney film, because my mom doesn't really like real actors, I can't lie. She always prefers animation, which is where my love for anime has come from as well. Small things like that I always took for granted. Things that in the period, in the moment, always felt like routine, always felt like, it's gonna be like this forever. But now, years on, it hasn't been like that for so long. I haven't sat around a table with my family in so many years. My brother moved out, then I moved out, then my mom moved places, and then she got a new job, and then I started moving over here, and then my brother was moving over here, and then he started developing his life over there, and all of a sudden, the thing that was so normalized for me is now just a fleeting, distant memory. And I say that to say it's shown in everybody's life, we love to grow up too fast. We love to anticipate the next thing without realizing how important the present moment is. When you're 12, you want to be 16. I know I did. When you're 16, you want to be 18. I know I did. When you're 18, you want to be out living in the world, doing whatever you want, have the freedom away from your family. But then when you're actually doing it, when you're actually sitting down in that freedom with all of the responsibilities that being an adult comes with, you realize, I'd do anything to go back. I'd do anything to sit around that table with my family, to relive that one Sunday again. Just once. That's all I need. And it's sad because it makes me realize exactly how much you take for granted in the everyday. Because I'm not saying you need to live every single day as if it's your last. That's stupid. No one will go to work. No one would want to sit in traffic. No one would want to pay taxes. No one would want to do anything in the everyday. But what I am saying is live every day as if it's important, as if it's a memorable day. When you wake up in the morning, wake up with intention for the day to be something that will stick in your mind. And obviously that would be difficult because you can't 100% 24/7 do something so new and fresh that your memory will hold on to it. But you can try, and the attempt will mean that you will find something that would make that one day special. You will always find something. And I find it crazy because in memory, you realize that every single person you've ever met knows a different version of you. That whilst you're reminiscing on these little mundane moments and all of these memories come flooding to your mind, the people who remember you remember a different version of you, the same way you remember a different version of someone else. The same way when I ask you to remember somebody you don't talk to, you remember the way they laugh, the way their eyes might have curled up, the way they might have gotten crow's feet at the edge of the corners of their eyes, the way they would have smelled, the way they walked. You would have remembered all of these small little things about them. But that version of them doesn't exist. That version that you remember isn't them anymore. Because that version has gone on to grow into a brand new, different person, the same way you have. A teacher might remember you as a 6-year-old rambunctious, loud child. An ex might remember you as rude, maybe manipulative, maybe evil, maybe toxic. Who knows? There are so many versions of everybody that you can't specifically let yourself be shackled by the bad ones. And the reason I specifically brought up the ex remembering you in a negative light is because whilst we always remember the good parts, we do have to remember and remind ourselves that nostalgia keeps us in a state of blissful ignorance. That whilst we always remember the good parts of life, whilst we always remember, oh my days, I miss it because this was so nice, we gloss over the negative unless it's deeply affected us. There are so many friendships that I don't have anymore with people that I wish I was never friends with, specifically because of the fact that when I was in said friendship, the disrespect was constant. It was immeasurable. But I still catch myself at times thinking, wow, they were actually a really good friend. No, they were cool, they were funny, they were this, they were that, when in actuality they weren't. When in actuality, they were a person who I don't want in my circle anymore. But nostalgia keeps me blind to that fact. Nostalgia keeps me blind to thinking, okay, this is what the reality of the situation is. Because memory and reality rarely often align correctly. They align in ways to make everything look great with rose-tinted glasses. You want to go back because on my days, childhood was great, but then you look back at the actual history of your childhood. At least in my case, there were a lot of negatives, but the positives outweighed, obviously. But there were still so many negatives that would not make me really want to go back and relive it. I would want to go back for the positives, but then you always forget the negatives. And there are versions of you that exist in people's heads that whenever they think of you, they wince. There are versions of you that whenever people think about you, they get a negative feeling in their chest. And I'm here to tell you that you should not be shackled by that. Simply because of the fact that you have grown. The same way that person doesn't exist whenever you think positively of an old friend or a family friend or an old lover. The negative connotations that the people may have of you, the versions they may have of you in their head doesn't exist anymore. In my case, I know there are plenty of people who whenever they see my face crop up on the internet, they hate it. They wish the worst upon me because I was a terrible person. I've made my mistakes. I've done all of the negative things that I've done. But I can't let myself be shackled by the person I used to be. Because as much as I always remember, damn, I did those things, I hate myself for doing those things, that version of me doesn't exist. And I'm saying the same for you. The fact that you can look back in the past with hindsight and say, yes, I was in the wrong for that, means you are already doing better. You can't wake up every day trying to achieve greatness, trying to soar to the skies when you're shackled by the weight of your sins. And I'm not saying you should forget everything. I'm not saying you should absolutely ignore all of the terrible things you've done. What I'm saying is you shouldn't let the version of yourself that used to be terrible determine the version of yourself you are trying to create. Because that version of yourself is still up to you. We all only live once. This is our first time at everything. Everybody makes a mistake. Everybody messes up and fucks up shit. But that doesn't mean that is who you are. And that's something I wish somebody had told me when I was growing up.